What happens when America's most powerful legal institution finds itself in a battle, not just in the courtroom, but within its own walls? A battle between the rule of law and the powerful forces of politics and fear. We're going to break down what happens when the guardians of justice are themselves under siege. Let's just start with this quote because, wow, it really says it all. This came from a top Justice Department expert, and it gets right to the heart of the enormous tension inside the investigation into materials found at Mar-a-Lago. It frames the entire conflict, what the law says versus the unbelievable political stakes. So, to really get what's going on here, you've got to understand who we're talking about when we say the Justice Department. We're not talking about the political appointees you see on TV. We're talking about the career professionals, the people who are the real backbone of the entire institution.
These are people who live and breathe this stuff. They're driven by the mission, not the politics of the day. They're famously the kind of people who say, "We accomplished something, never I did." They're true institutionalists who just believe in the law and are motivated by the idea of doing some good in the world.
Okay, so you have these dedicated people, but here's the thing. The institution they worked for, it was already hurting. Years of intense political pressure and very personal attacks on its staff had really taken a toll. It created this atmosphere of, well, extreme caution. And that brings us to this. People on the inside were actually using words like hollowed out to describe the feeling at the DOJ and the FBI. Think about that. It wasn't just about abstract politics. These were career professionals who would watch their friends and colleagues see their careers completely decimated just for doing their jobs.
And all of this created what you could call institutional fear. It's not about being a coward. It was a deep sense of weariness, a real reluctance to touch anything that could blow up into a political firestorm. For instance, some FBI agents were hesitant to even look at evidence connecting the former president's circle to election interference. One field office chief reportedly shut down prosecutors' requests again and again.
So, fast forward to the aftermath of January 6th. A lot of people were expecting the Justice Department to move fast and go right to the top, right? Well, that's not what happened. They reached for a much older, much more traditional playbook. And this timeline, man, it lays it all out. The new Attorney General, Merrick Garland, is a true institutionalist. He seemed to believe the political fever had broken, and the best way forward was the old way, the post-Watergate strategy. You start with the rioters on the ground, and you slowly, methodically build your cases upward. But in this case, that created what's been called a 15-month justice gap before a full investigation into the inner circle even got started. All right, so now the scene changes. Special counsel Jack Smith enters the picture, and let me tell you, the heat gets turned way up. He takes over these investigations, and his team immediately walks into a massive, high-stakes decision that would change everything. The choice was, where do you file the classified documents case? Do you file it in Washington, D.C., where the judges know this stuff inside and out, but you risk being accused of jury shopping? Or do you file in Florida, which is the legally correct place where most of it happened, but you run the very real risk of getting a hostile judge appointed by the person you're investigating? So what did Smith do? Being the institutionalist that he is, he stuck to the book. He chose Florida. His team was warned point blank, if Cannon gets this case, it's dead. They decided to roll the dice anyway, thinking the odds of that happening were about 1 in 6. It turned out the real odds were closer to 1 in 3. And they lost that bet. And the reaction from the team? Well, this quote from one of the prosecutors pretty much says it all. You can just feel the gut punch in those words. They knew, in that exact moment, how much the game had just changed. So the worst-case scenario happens. Judge Cannon gets the case. Smith could see his team was absolutely devastated. And what he did next was pretty remarkable for a guy known for being all business. He literally went from office to office, talking to his team members one-on-one, telling them not to give up, to stay focused, and to put on the best case they possibly could. Okay, so let's switch gears back to that other big investigation, the one into election interference. With the DOJ moving so slowly, what finally got things moving? Honestly, it was pressure from the outside. You could even say it was embarrassment. You see, the January 6th committee in Congress was doing its own thing, and they were moving fast. News started leaking out that they were uncovering evidence that the Justice Department just didn't have, like how the whole fake elector scheme was coordinated. Suddenly, the DOJ was on its back foot, and the public pressure was mounting. And this all leads to a moment that is just wild.
As former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson gets ready to give her absolutely bombshell testimony to that committee, there was a really important question being asked inside the Justice Department. Get this. The Attorney General of the United States is watching the hearing on TV, just like the rest of us, and has to turn to his own staff and ask, "Hey, did we know about this?" And the answer he gets back is, "No, sir, we didn't." I mean, wow. That one moment tells you everything you need to know about the gap between these two investigations.
Which brings us to where we are now. Because both of the special counsel's major cases are essentially on hold, tied up in court, there is a mountain of evidence that his team dug up that the American public has never, ever seen. And we're not talking about small details. We're talking about a massive 100-page trial plan for the election case. Evidence in the documents case that Jack Smith himself has called overwhelming. Details about a briefing on election security, a lot. And there's a growing feeling among people who followed this that the dam is about to burst, that these career professionals will feel they have to tell their side of the story. And, it leaves us with a really big question, right? This whole story shows the incredible dedication of these public servants. But it also makes you wonder, when the official legal process gets bogged down or blocked, how does the full story ever get out? So what do you think about all this? It's a complicated story for sure, with a lot of dedicated people caught in the middle. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And hey, if you got something out of this breakdown, a like and a subscribe would be awesome. It really helps us out.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for this one. We really appreciate you watching Policy in Plain English.